it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my Asexual Life. There's a place to be for education about asexuality. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So, YouTube's playing up for me a little bit tonight. So, as I'm recording this, if you're unable to chat to me, I do apologise. Let's crack on with the show though. So, we're discussing tonight if asexuals want kids and what they think about having children or not, as the case might be. So, let's get to work. We're talking today about asexual perspectives because it's Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month. Just like this Asexual Perspectives book, it celebrates our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. So, this is Silji's story, and I'm going to be reading from this throughout today's episode. Would you like kids, and if so, how many? And how do you hope to conceive these? If you already have kids, did you know before you had them that you are asexual, and how did that impact your life? This is very important because some asexuals are sex repulsed, but some asexuals really do want to have children even though they don't like sex or not interested in sex. So it can pose some unique problems if it's an asexual person who really doesn't like sex but they want kids by natural means. So what does Silji think? Oh no, I knew when I was 4 and that notion still stands strong to this day. Change my mind my ass, excuse my language. So I think this is really good that they knew at 4 years old they did not want kids. I have known since I'm 15 years old that I definitely don't want kids. I thought to myself that if I ever did want children, that I would adopt. This is what I thought at 15, but I automatically ruled that out as well because I don't want that lifestyle. Now, some people will say you can still have the same lifestyle with children. And as I've said before on this channel, there is no way I could have the same lifestyle that I do now. Like at the moment, I've injured myself, so I can't go out clubbing, but I love clubbing. I love clubbing till like 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. And you might have guessed by now I'm a night owl. So now it's after midnight, and this is my awake time. This is the time when I come alive, time when I'm busy being creative. I do go to sleep sometimes earlier these days, but in general, I love working when other people are sleeping, and I'm just far more awake at the times that other people aren't usually. I work on like American times, if you like. And if you do have children, it's a huge responsibility. You do have to change and adapt your lifestyle and life to them to cater for their needs. Children are vulnerable. They have to come first. You have to prioritize their needs. It doesn't mean to say you can't still have needs, but obviously children are vulnerable. They can't take care of themselves. And so you have to make them a priority. And you can't go doing some of the stuff you would do when you're a single person. You can't just take off whenever you want and go wherever you want. You can't just hop on a train and like tell them to fend for themselves. This is not realistic. So anyone who says, oh, you can still have a life after children, yeah, you can still have a life, but that life is going to be very different. And it may not be the life that you want to lead. So I think it's important before you have kids to think why you're having kids and if your lifestyle and personality suits that or not. Because I think some people's personalities and lifestyles do suit it. For people who prefer to be at home more, cook more, clean, that type of thing that kids do need because they rely on you as a baby and a kid growing up to do those things for them to a certain extent, up to a certain age, then I think you're more likely to suit that type of role. However, if you get angry easily, if you get frustrated, if you're emotionally unavailable, if you don't like being emotionally vulnerable with your child and stuff like that, that can pose huge problems. So in order to have a healthy relationship with your child, you need to be emotionally available for them as well as mentally available for them and physically available and able to take care of their needs. I see situations where parents think they're doing a great job because they're putting a roof over the kid's head and they're feeding the kid. The kid needs a lot more than that. They need emotional stability. They need to know that their emotions are taken care of too. They need to be protected mentally by having healthy, open, honest communication and discussion. If you're a person that's an unhealthy person and you're really easy to anger and you're shut down or avoidant, or you've got some tendencies which means you are not available emotionally for people, you don't want to have open, honest conversations, you want a bit dictatorship, you want to be authoritarian, you don't want to involve the child to make their own decisions and choices, you don't want to support the child, you don't want to give the loving environment to a child, then you shouldn't be having kids, in my opinion. Right? You don't just need to look after them in terms of keeping a roof over their head and food in their belly. You need to make sure they're emotionally taken care of as well. And I think this is sorely neglected in society and in bringing kids up. I think kids to a lot of people are like a tick box. Oh, yeah, do I want a little baby mummy or a little baby daddy? Do you know what I mean? Do I want a cutie, you know? And they don't really think of the consequences of what it takes to raise a child. I am child free and I'm not interested in having children, but I do know some of the needs of a child. I'm not going to say I know them all because I'm not a mother, but I know how a lot of children have problems growing up because they don't have the needs met in multiple areas of their life. They may just have them met in one or maybe two areas, and it's not enough. So I would strongly encourage you, if you're thinking about having children, ask yourself, why are you having them? What is the reason? Are you just having them there for your own pleasure and satisfaction so they can take care of you in your old age? Or are you genuinely wanting kids in and of their own right? There is a lot of screwed up adults right now in the world, and it's because they had a bad childhood, right? And what made that childhood bad is different for different kids, but it's often the relationship they had with their parents or caregivers that determines the quality of their adult life and the traumas and trials and tribulations they go through and the difficulties in adult relationships. So while this video is talking about do asexuals want kids, and we are discussing this and we're taking sections from Asexual Perspectives book, I want you to know like how important it is. If you're considering this for yourself and you're an asexual watching this right now, make sure you have kids for the right reasons. I'm not saying you shouldn't have kids just because I don't have them. You might be of the mentality and emotional status that you can have children, that you're open to giving and receiving love from a child, that you're open to taking care of it in its best interest, not your own as the primary objective. If you're an emotionally available person, if you're an empathetic person, if you're a kind and caring person, if you're a person who will say when their kid hits their knee on the floor, when their kid smacks their head on a brick, something really painful, you're there to give them a hug and say, it's going to be okay. I love you. It's going to be all right. Not one of those parents that's like, why are you crying? Stop crying. That is totally the wrong attitude to have. And that's how adults fear, open up and showing their emotions and end up repressing and suppressing them. We have a lot of people as adults with severe mental health difficulties because of the way that they were treated or trapped in childhood. And the only way we can stop this is by educating people that parenting is not just about having a kid to tick off some box to keep the generation or species of humans alive. It goes deeper beyond that. It's saying, are we set up for success as a society with the children that we're bringing into this world in terms of being open to them, vulnerable to them, emotional with them, supportive of them? A child should be encouraged to make its own decisions, but comforted knowing that the parent's there for them no matter what, but not to be guided that their own judgment is wrong. But to have the parents saying, you want to do that? I'm here to support you. I want you to go for your dreams. Parents should be encouraging children in their dreams. Parents should be encouraging kids to make their own decisions in a healthy way in which that child feels loved, cared, and supported. Parents should be able to be emotionally available for the child. If not, It leads to emotional neglect, which is actually a form of abuse, in case you didn't know that. So if you're a person yourself who's going to end up being a parent who's very shut down, very avoidant, very emotionally unavailable for a child, then I would say you've got some work that needs to be done on yourself with therapy before you're fit to be a healthy parent to a child. Because there is a lot of people who are adults out there right now who have had emotional neglect as children that are suffering in adult relationships because their parent wasn't there for them emotionally. And so I really want you to consider these things before you have children. It's very important. So let's get on to Nikki's story now in Asexual Perspectives book. This book is on Amazon, by the way, if you want to grab a copy. So would you like kids, and if so, how many? And how do you hope to conceive these if you already have kids? Did you know before you had them that you're asexual? And how did that impact your life? I am not interested in having children, says Nikki, nor do I currently have any. The idea of having or raising children has just never appealed. I've never been drawn to children or gotten on with them very well. When I'm finished with my program, I will have been in college for 8 years, and I definitely want to get out there and have a career, which would be challenging with a child. I know it's possible, but given how disinterested I am in children, it's not a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Now, something that you might find very interesting about me personally is though I don't want children, I've known since 15, I don't want kids, I actually get on really well with children. When I was the age of 15, I used to think about working with children as a possible career option because I really do get on well with kids. But the reason I get on well with kids is because I understand them. I have that kid fun factor in me. I relate to them loads. I am literally like an adult kid on purpose with the type of movies I watch, a lot of animation and superhero films. And with the way I like to lead my life, it's very much like a teenager. You know, my bedroom is full of lots of stuff that a teenager would usually have. You might have noticed this heart here. Do you want to see this? Look, hugs make your heart happy. You know, that's a gift I bought myself, but it's a cute bear with hearts on it. See, or with a heart between them, but with little hearts all over. So yeah, I'll pull that back up there. But I have loads of cuddly toys all around my room and stuff like that. But I love like stuff like children love. So I can really relate to them, and I like the creativity that children have because I'm creative with my writing books. This is one of my own books, Asexual Perspectives. And so I really do get on well because I can relate to them. But I think of kids as little beings in their own right. I don't think of them as, oh, this child. Of course, I think of children as children in terms of legal age stuff, but I don't treat kids like they're incompetent or they know less than I do. I don't patronize them and put them down or do stuff like that because I hate people who do that. You know, I like to talk to kids on an equal level, even though they're different age. In birth certificate age, I like to be on their level. I like to treat them as little beings in their own right rather than thinking about their age difference, if you know what I mean. So I just have a great respect for the children where they're at in their life, if you know what I mean. I love a lot of the stuff they love, so I can relate to them a lot, you know. So we are going to now look at Victoria's story. Does she want children? I don't want to have children. If I ever do change my mind, unlikely I will adopt. And so, yeah, this is true for quite a few asexuals in terms of if they have kids, they'd rather adopt, but it's not true for every asexual. Because some asexuals, they really don't like sex. They're really not interested in it. They're not interested in ever having it. And so, therefore, they would rather adopt or have kids by other means. Some asexuals do have artificial insemination, for example, this type of thing. but other asexuals do like kids by natural means, even so to the point that they would have sex just to have kids, and they might not ever have sex ever again in their life. So Hannah Steinhardt's story in Asexual Perspectives book, would you like kids, and if so, how many? How do you hope to conceive these? If you already have kids, did you know before you had them that you are asexual, and how did that impact your life? Hannah says, I would like to adopt a child or two at some point, or become a host parent for exchange students. That's the first time I've heard that in this book. Become a host parent for exchange students. Very interesting, isn't it? It's a bit like temporary adoption. I don't want to conceive my own children, especially with all of the children in foster systems or up for adoption. I do think that's a really good point. I used to think that if I did have kids, which I knew at 15 I didn't want kids, but if I did, I would adopt. One is because I don't physically want a kid inside my body. I would really disgust me personally. I'm very pregnancy repulsed. But also, two, is I'd like to be able to choose a kid and for it to feel like it's chosen and special by me. Do you know what I mean? And someone who is or was up for adoption, because then I could give a loving home to a kid who I choose, who feels special, like they've been chosen, and give them a good home and upbringing. That was a scenario I thought if I ever wanted kids, which I don't. But I would always prefer to adopt, because I think, it's important to give a kid a home who may have felt like neglected and they didn't have a home to go to before. Or maybe the love of their life, their parents was some tragic accident or something, you know what I mean? But I don't want to do that. And I purposely look, if I'm on dating sites, I'm not active on dating sites anymore. I'm on dating detox at the moment, but I purposely look for guys who haven't got children. I don't want children. I get some guys occasionally approaching me with children, and I'm like, I'm not interested in having kids. I used to put that in my bio, I feel that I'd have trouble bonding with a younger child, says Hannah, but will probably want anywhere from 1 to 3 children once I have a steady life in which I could securely raise them. So this is a person who wants to adopt children. I personally am not into babies, so I knew that if I did adopt a child years ago, it would be probably from the age of 4 or 5 upwards, because I'm really not a baby person, even though babies do like me because they know I'm safe and secure. I've had babies like reaching out their little pinky finger, holding my hand, because in my ex-employer workplace, I used to work near a nursery. It took me ages, 2.5 years, to overcome pregnancy repulsion, so I didn't feel sick every time I saw a pregnant woman, because I'm really pregnancy repulsed. I just really don't like it, and it's kind of weird as an asexual, because I'm thinking, oh my god, you're advertising that you've had sex to have that baby. The pregnancy is like, I know there are people who have pregnancies nowadays that do it in test tubes and stuff like that, but for the main part, most people still conceive a baby through having sex, and it's just like yuck to me, I'm a sex repulsed, for me personally, asexual, and I'm very pregnancy repulsed. To me, it's just like walking around saying I've had sex. Like, a load of people like to keep sex private, other people don't. But then when they have a pregnancy, to me, it's like just walking around. It's like having a stick on legs saying I've been having sex. You know what I mean? It's like having a sign. The pregnancy is like a symbol of a sign saying I've had sex. I'm walking around showing everyone that I've had sex. You know what I mean? It's just wherever I go, I've had sex. You know what I mean? I just feel it's like broadcasting the fact you've had sex. I find it really odd, but that's because I'm asexual, sex repulsed for me personally, and that's my personal opinion. And I'm very pregnancy repulsed. But I think it's good if people know that they want kids and how they want them, and people who know that they don't want kids and are happy being child-free, which I very much am. I don't want that lifestyle. So, Anonymous' story. Would you like kids? And if so, how many? I think it would be cool to have a biological son, but I don't think I would be physically able to reproduce since I never experienced sexual attraction or sexual arousal. Now, this is very interesting because some asexuals, despite the fact they don't experience sexual attraction, they still experience sexual arousal enough to have an erection, for example, so to conceive a child. Whereas other asexuals don't experience any sexual arousal. So, in other words, the guy wouldn't be able to have an erection. A guy, for example, of course, it could be an impotent woman. You don't very often hear of impotent women. Or any gender, But yeah, impotency is not the same as asexuality, but some people who are asexual may not be able to experience sexual attraction and sexual arousal. Usually asexuals lack sexual attraction, so to not experience sexual attraction in the main for asexuals is the main thing. But there's a spectrum of asexuals. Those that are pure asexual don't experience any sexual attraction, to those who are grey asexuals who do experience sexual attraction but not enough to want to act on it, and or you could use the definition of grey asexuals, because there's another definition. So one grey sexual definition is they experience sexual attraction but not enough to want to act on it, so they lack the usual sexual attraction to make them want to act on it. And the other grey asexuals, they do experience sexual attraction but only under limited, rare, or specific circumstances. So you got two types of grey asexuals going on there. But some asexuals, they experience no sexual attraction, but they can still experience arousal. I experience arousal, but no sexual attraction. But I don't have a drive for sex, even though I've partaked in sex in the past and I have a full capacity to be able to do that again if I really wanted to, as far as I know. But I'm not interested. I'm really not interested in having sex. So yeah, there are some asexuals that basically are not able to get aroused, probably because they're not sexually attracted and not interested in sex at all and sexual stuff. It kind of turns them off. So therefore they wouldn't be able to get an erection to do sexual intercourse, to have a baby in those ways. Right, Carrie Ann's story in asexual perspectives. So would Carrie Ann like kids? And if so, how many? Yes, I have 2 boys, said Carrie Ann. I did suspect I was asexual before, but I was also married at the time. So yeah, some asexuals do have children and they get married, they have kids, and they don't realize they're asexual until after they're married or after they've had children. This person suspected they were asexual before, but I've known a number of people to not realize they're asexual until after they've had children. And so don't be surprised if some asexuals have had kids and they had sex to have the children. There's a huge myth, a misconception about asexuals, that all asexuals don't have sex, don't want it, don't need it, don't like it, and all asexuals will never have it. So people don't understand that some asexuals could have had sex in the past. Some asexuals are sex positive, so do have sex in their current relationships, even though they don't experience sexual attraction. Or they're on the more grey end of the asexual spectrum. They only experience it infrequently, irregularly, or under specific circumstances. And there are asexuals who want to have children by natural means, so they will have the sex for that. But there are asexuals who've had children and they didn't know they were asexual until after they had the kids. And then some asexuals, they have the children, they just lose all interest in sex because for them it was just a means to an end of having the children they wanted, and after that they didn't have a desire or interest in sex because they were never really that interested in sex in the first place, but they didn't really realize that because it was kind of like the norm, what's expected is to have sex and to have children. And then after they've had the kids, they realize, oh, I'm not really bothered about sex now. I just want to have the children. And I've known someone who had this experience whose wife was like this, but he didn't realize she was asexual when he married her. He said he would never ever cheat on his wife ever, but he likes sex a lot, and after marriage they didn't do that anymore because she wasn't interested in that. And he knew I was asexual and basically said his wife is asexual, but he's not. So he found that really hard, and she didn't even like kissing or cuddling with him. Now, I have to tell you that some asexuals don't like kissing and cuddling with their sexual partner if they think the sexual partner is going to turn it into a sexual thing. So some asexuals, if they're strong in the boundaries, very assertive, and they've got a really loving, understanding sexual partner who's agreeing not to have sex with them, if they're in a monogamous relationship, they're not having sex with anyone else, but who still can, some asexuals can have a loving sexual partner who can kiss and cuddle them without sex. But you have to understand, for an asexual, that can be quite dangerous. And it can be quite difficult for an asexual to be in a relationship with a sexual person because there's always that thought in the back of their mind, like, is that sexual maybe going to go off with someone else to have sex, or is that sexual going to pressurize them for sex? And so some asexuals will purposely avoid intimacy of just kissing and cuddling their sexual partner because they don't want it to lead on to other things, and they fear that it might do, so that stops them being intimate. And so it's very difficult for asexuals. People talk a lot about how hard done bisexuals are if they're in a relationship with an asexual person. And it's just really strange because there is a lot of difficulties from an asexual point of view about being in a relationship with a sexual person. It's just as hard in different similar ways. Because if a sexual person finds it hard to be in a relationship with an asexual person, if they really get urges for sex, an asexual person finds it hard to be with a sexual person if they really don't want sex, because they get worried that the sexual is going to take it too far, push them too far, do something that they don't want to do, make them feel uncomfortable. It's hard when you're being intimate as an asexual person. I'm hyper romantic and a hyper kisser. You might have heard of my best-selling book, Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual. And that's on Amazon. And for me, I love a lot of kissing and cuddling intimacy. But if it starts to get too sexual with a guy, then it does turn me off. It does make me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I just want to go back to kissing. This is getting too sexual for me. It's getting unpleasant. It's getting uncomfortable. And I then have to remind the sexual guy, like, I really need to get back to the kissing. It's getting too sexual, and say that to him even. I mean, obviously, I'm not seeing any guys at the moment, but, that's been the case in the past. It really difficult because my love language, my top love language is quality time. My second is physical touch, joint second with words of affirmation. So if you think that my second is touch, I do love physical touch, then it's hard as an asexual person because you don't want to lead it, you don't want it to lead on to more. And obviously, if you have sex, you need to be protected, use protection, otherwise you can end up getting pregnant and having children, right? Some asexuals I do worry about because some asexuals do end up having sex and they have it unprotected because they're not used to having sex. And for whatever reason, they decide to try it. And I want to warn you now that just because you're asexual, you may not be intersex. You may just have sex once with someone. You can still get pregnant. I think I shouldn't have to say this because I think it should be obvious, but I know it's not, because I know in the past I have had a couple of asexuals in my inbox saying they've done this, had unprotected sex basically. And I'm like, this is a huge no-no, right? I'm not having sex, but if I was, I'd be using contraception or protection. right? I wouldn't be doing that without it. I don't want to ever get pregnant. I can still have babies by natural means. Like, I don't know how I look forward to the day when I can't have periods because I'm just not interested in them. But and that's one of the bugs we have to bear as female with female genitalia is periods. They're a nightmare, right? But and yeah, I just like loads of people want children and they hate the fact that one day they might not be able to have kids because they might be past that age of having children. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not having sex right now, because I definitely could still have children by physical means. And I definitely don't want them. When I was in a relationship, long-term relationship, this is going back in 2011. That's my last long-term relationship. I've had short-term relationships after that, but long-term relationship, I used to worry in that relationship when I was having sex with that guy. I haven't had sex since, thank God, that I might get pregnant. I was so paranoid, I was going to say. I was so paranoid that I might get pregnant and it would be my worst nightmare. I mean, I really would hate to have that in me. Like, I cannot describe. I'm not going to describe it on here because it might offend some people who do want babies and love kids. And I don't dislike kids and I don't hate babies per se because I'm fine. I actually get on well with babies, but I'm not into babies and I definitely don't want a baby. I'm not interested in that. It's not my type of thing. But I don't want to offend anyone. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't want that in me. So I think it's very important to know that if you're an asexual person though who is going to try sex or have sex, please use protection and contraception, one or the other or both, ideally, because you don't want to get pregnant. I know someone who got pregnant as an asexual person by a guy who was very bad for her, and she didn't listen to my advice, which is fine, she doesn't have to, but she ended up in a very bad situation in another country. There's nothing I can do about that, but you've got to understand that if you do want children as well, it's good that if you can be in a situation where you have a healthy other parent as well as you being healthy. There are a lot of people that just rush into having children and they don't really think about being healthy. You need to be a healthy individual before you have kids in order that you're raising someone who's going to be healthy themselves. Otherwise, you pass down what's called generational trauma. And that's when you'll traumatize yourself as a parent and you pass on your bad habits from that trauma onto your children, who then have their own children possibly, or end up in relationships where the trauma affects it and they end up in dark situations, shall we say, difficult situations, unhealthy, traumatic situations. So it's not good. So always think about what environment have you got for the child? What environment do you want to bring the child up in? How do you want to treat the child? Learn good parenting techniques, from people who are parents, who are good parents. I'm sure there's a lot of YouTubers and books out there on good parenting. So I would suggest you go and get some and learn about this stuff. Some people are like, oh, I didn't know any better, and I'm not doing anything about it. It's like, well, you can always change. You can always become a better parent. If you didn't know, you didn't know. But now you know that you can become better. You go and learn how to become better, don't you? You don't sit there watching TV 24/7 and not actually engaging in conversation with your children. That's something else that's really bad about this society. Not just about raising kids, but about adults. So many adults, as well as adults with, parents of children, they just come home and watch TV. It's like, you need to switch the TV off and have conversations with your children, have conversations with your spouse. Because having a TV there is not healthy communication. It's just a program on. It's actually stopping you communicating together, your needs and stuff. So please think about what you're doing and be consciously aware of these things. Then you can become a better person, and so can your children grow up to be better people, which made the world a happier and better place. Right, okay, so Fiora's story. Would you like kids, and if so, how many? I'm not sure if I want kids. If I do have them, I want to have at least 3. I know that sounds like a lot, to many people, but I would prefer a larger family to a smaller one. As for how I'd have kids, I wouldn't mind conceiving them through sex. So I was saying earlier that some asexuals will have sex in order to have children. Some asexuals actually only want sex by natural means, as in sexual intercourse, which might surprise you, but they don't want to adopt. Whereas some asexuals will only consider adoption or other means and not intercourse or penetrative sex. The other asexuals, they will only consider having intercourse, penetrative sex, natural means to have children, right? So I think you've got to understand that not every asexual is the same. Many asexuals are different. Many asexuals have differences, I was going to say, and are different. And I think it's important that if you are thinking about getting into a relationship with an asexual or dating an asexual, and whether you're asexual yourself or not asexual watching this, I think it's important that you discuss all these things up front with the person that you're speaking to. You know, if you're a person who's coming across an asexual on a dating website, for example, ask them, like, I understand you're asexual. What does asexual mean for you? What are your life goals? What are your views and opinions on sex, on marriage, and kids? Ask them these general questions. These general questions are helpful, they're insightful, they show you care, that you're taking interest. And even if you're asexual yourself, don't expect the other asexual to be the same as you. That's a big mistake. I come across a lot of other asexuals, and especially on asexual dating sites and asexual dating groups. I run 3 of my own. And the biggest mistake I see is people thinking that other asexuals are going to be the same as them. And a lot of the time, we're vastly different people with extremely different needs. But there's some basic things that are often similar for certain types of asexuals. But, you know, like I've said, some asexuals will only adopt, but they want kids. Some asexuals never want children. Some asexuals only want kids through having sex, penetrative sex. So you've got to understand that there's differences, right? And it's interesting that some people only want bigger families. I personally am an only child. There's only one of me. I don't have brothers and I don't have sisters. So, yeah, I come from a very small family. So, would you like kids? Ari's story from asexual perspectives. I don't have kids and don't want them. I think you should really, really want kids to have them because of how much of your life will need to center around them. Because, sorry, I'll start that again. I don't have kids and don't want them. I think you should really, really want kids to have them because of how much of your life will need to center around them for the next 18 years at least. I totally agree with that. If I ever change my mind about wanting them, hopefully I'd have a girlfriend who wanted to give birth to them with a sperm donor, because I still wouldn't want to be pregnant or adoption, but I hear that's prohibitively difficult and expensive. So yeah, there is someone else in this book. This is Ari, who doesn't want to get pregnant, who definitely wouldn't want to give birth to them by natural means. So they would want to use a sperm donor. So that is very, very interesting as well. They'd have to have a girlfriend who want to give birth to them with a sperm donor. That's what they said. Not that they would give birth to them, but their girlfriend would have to have a sperm donor because they wouldn't want to do that. So I hope I've phrased that right. I might have said that a bit weird. I might have phrased it a bit wrong. But so basically, they wouldn't want to be pregnant. They would have to have a girlfriend who had a sperm donor, or adoption they would consider. So yes, I think it's very important again to think about different types of feelings where asexuals are concerned, and it's always important to speak to the asexuals involved or asexual involved in the relationship, right? So let's see. Isadora's story. Would you like children? If so, how many? I don't want children and haven't had any. That's a simple answer from Isadora. And that is quite right for some people, just don't want kids like me. I just don't want them. So, Cassie's story. Would you like kids? And if so, how many? I would not like to have any children, though I believe that to be connected to my personality rather than my asexuality. So yeah, I would say for me personally, I don't want kids because of my lifestyle, my personality in terms of I prefer to be the kid in the relationship, and I'm pregnancy repulsed, and I don't want that responsibility, and I don't want that lifestyle. I like to be able to go out when I want, do what I want, when I want, how I want. I like to be able to live a life of freedom. And when you have a kid, it's huge responsibility. And I have a hard time just looking after myself because I do have fibromyalgia. I've got injuries in my back at the moment, although I feel I'm getting stronger by doing lots of exercise. It's hard work, so it's hard work just looking after myself with unseen disabilities like fibromyalgia, and I have anxiety condition as well, so I wouldn't want to pass those difficulties on to children, like with my anxiety, for example. And I know that I'm very kind and caring, though. I know kids feel really safe with me. I've had children from when I was a very young age as well come up to me. For example, I had a kid when I was like a teenager. I had a kid come up to me when I was standing at a place called Timoth in the UK, watching the carnival go by, and she came and held my hand. And I was in a spectator of the carnival, and this kid just came and put her hand in mine as though I was a member of her family and she knew me for years. One of my old jobs, the parents were looking at the bedrooms and beds, and the kid, this was a boy, came and put his hand in my hand, and I have kept kids amused on my department in an old job. It's not my department anymore, I don't work there. I kept 3 kids entertained while their parents were buying beds on the adjacent department, because I was talking to them about Toy Story movies, and we were making animal noises, and it was so much fun. So I do get on really well with kids. I do find them entertaining. I like their creativity. I'm kind of on the same vibe and energy as them. So for me, there's good things about kids, and I do get kids feeling very safe with me. They know they can trust me. They know they're safe with me. They know I would look after them. Like if anyone's even in my care at an asexual meetup, because I regularly held group meetups for asexuals until the year before last. Last year I had to move and did online courses, and my life's got busy since then. But I did asexual group meetups, and while those people are in my care for my meetups, I'm very kind of a person who likes looking after people. Like if anything's wrong, like one of the people who previously came, who doesn't identify as asexual anymore, actually, so they're not coming to meetups anymore. They injured themselves a little bit. They hurt their leg or something. I remember we were in the city at the time, and we went to Marks and Spencer's, and I asked them if they could have ice cubes or ice pack for the person, because I like to take care of them, the people that come to my meetups. A lot of people who come to my meetups can have mental health difficulties, disabilities, special needs, and I'm good with people like that, because obviously I have unseen disabilities myself, and anxiety, which is a mental health difficulty. And so it's not easy, I know, socializing and being in groups when you've got those type of difficulties, because you have to be able to fit in and adapt to different people and surroundings, but I try to make it as comfortable as possible for people. And so I do have kind of like, I'm not interested in mothering a guy or anything like that, but I have this very kind of comforting caretaker feeling within me. Like I like, to make sure people feel that they're cared for in my care. And when children are around me, they know automatically somehow, because it's the vibe and energy probably I give off, that they can be around me and I will care for them and I won't let harm come to them. I'm protective in that way, you know? So anyway, whether you are an asexual who wants kids or an asexual who doesn't want kids, you're both valid, you know, and by whatever means you do want kids, that's perfectly valid as well. I just want you to know that some asexuals want kids by natural means, some asexuals don't want kids at all, some asexuals want to adopt or have kids by other means, and every asexual is valid. And to all the beautiful asexuals out there, I really appreciate you, and I hope that all your asexual dreams come true, whether you want kids, you don't want kids, whether you want to find a relationship, you don't want to find a relationship, whether you want to be with someone in your future or you don't, you're happy on your own, whatever makes you happy. I want that for you. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Grab a copy of Asexual Perspectives on Amazon, this bestseller, and also Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual on Amazon. This has got 78 life lessons to Asexual life to improve your asexual needs being met, to improve your confidence, to improve your self-care. So going at these now. I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Thanks for watching tonight. See you soon. Bye. Oh, if it's morning, happy morning. I said thanks for watching tonight. But when you're on the replay, whatever time it is there, whatever time you're watching now, it's been ace to have you. And a happy day. Love you. Bye.